good. My head is. I just like I put the kids to bed. I was showering, so shaved my head and everything. And when I sat down and turned the lights on, I'm all shiny and whatnot.
Oh, hey, are we live? We're fucking live.
Oh,
And I'm
Dan, you
hearing,
had that while we were live?
I don't know. I'm hearing, wait, is there a bit of an echo?
Is there
Is
an
that
echo?
the background?
If there's an echo, then I'll mute myself and get my headphones.
Oh, it could just be background noise, but your children are sleeping, so it couldn't possibly be that.
Yeah, no, they're in bed. I'll turn. Okay, how about now? Can you hear any echo?
Go, go. Oh, I cannot.
Okay, maybe if I just turn the
Cool.
volume down a little bit, then you won't hear it.
All right, cool, cool. So I'm not quite sure when we went live, but some shit happened today that was pretty hard to ignore. Like, do we do small talk until Aaron gets here? Like, it's hard.
Aaron's
It
here now.
feels wrong. It feels wrong to do small talk.
Yeah, I'm gonna do small talk. I'm not a small talk kind of person.
I'm like,
I'll
I
stick to
could
the big
talk
topic.
about the very stressful day I had taking my cats to the vet.
Hello,
But
how are
yeah,
you?
yeah,
I'm
you're
sure.
talking about that in the Discord.
Oh my goodness.
Your vet had to talk you through your cat getting loose.
Like, it was a very stressful situation. This is like my
Yeah,
worst fucking nightmare. All right. Like,
yeah.
my cat carrier fell apart in my hands when I was trying to get her out of the car, and she was just loose in the car. And I was like, "God damn it, what the fuck do I do?" And the vet's like, "Okay, here's another cat carrier. You just gotta go in the car and, like, put her in there." And I'm like, "I need help." And she's like, "Well, you know what? If we go in, we're just gonna freak her out more." And I was like, "Fair enough." So, I did it and it was fine. The end. Cool story, I know.
That that sounds
Sounds
like a
very stressful.
traumatic experience to have a cat loose in the car. Like,
See,
that'd be my nightmare, yeah.
it's my nightmare too, but for completely different reasons. I'm like, "Oh no, my baby, my precious
Uh,
cat child," and you're
where
like,
I'm like,
"Ugh,
get
a
it out of
cat in the
here.
car.
Yeah,
Get away from
exactly.
me."
Exactly.
Oh, I'll make
Uh,
you love cats some well, not any cats,
eh,
my cats. They're good. They're good
maybe
girls.
your cats. Maybe your
Oh my
cats.
god. I was, like, apologizing for it's like when you apologize for your drunk friend and you're like, "He's normally really cool. He's never does this. He never
Yeah,
does
yeah,
this." I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
that every time I go to the vet. Like, she's such a good cat. She just hates going to the vet. Which I
I
get.
mean, I hate going to the doctors, so I understand.
Yeah,
That's
nobody
reasonable.
likes to be poked and prodded.
No, no, not at
And
all.
you're like, "Your cat, you don't know what the fuck is happening to you. You think you're being abducted by aliens or something."
Exactly, right, exactly, yeah. I mean, most cats don't even like being, like, rubbed on their bellies, man. So imagine getting
No.
poked and prodded by a vet. Nah. Uh-uh.
It's not good. It fucks up their shit.
Uh.
Anyway, that was the small talk portion of the evening. Welcome. Welcome, friends. Welcome, guests. Welcome, comrades, to this very special, um, semi Antifada, semi our new show, is yet untitled, stream. As you may see, who's on here and who's in the title. I am here with Aaron Thorpe and Andray Domise. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, thank you for, having us, Jamie, and for all of us embarking on this project we're gonna do, man. This is gonna be exciting.
Well, yeah.
Uh,
So I feel like we got to talk about this. We got it's in the news. It's everybody's talking about. I assume you talked about it some earlier on the Trillbilly stream, Aaron.
yeah, yeah. I talked about it with Tanya a little bit.
Oh yeah, fucking Derek Chauvin was convicted. He's guilty on all 3 counts in the death of George Floyd. We
Yeah.
got second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter, which is more than I thought he was going to be convicted of.
Mm,
However, still none of it involves, premeditation, which seems like perhaps, like a conscious decision on the part of the prosecution, right? Like, this is what we think we can get because they fucking knew each other, Derek
yeah.
Chauvin and George Floyd, which is insane, and I don't think it came up much in the trial. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
Um,
I don't
but
think it did at all, actually. And when I found that out, like, afterwards, I was, like, shocked that they knew each other, like, years prior.
Yeah, they worked security
Hmm.
at a club together. And from what I heard on NPR, yes, I like to hate listen to NPR sometimes. Um, George Floyd was always the one who made situations better, and Derek Chauvin was the one who made situations worse by escalating them.
Mm,
Hmm. Hmm.
mm, mm.
Um, so the subject of race didn't come up that much during the trial, as well as like the systemic problems with policing, right? They framed it in a very hashtag not all cops way.
Mm.
This is one bad cop who did one bad thing and got in trouble for it. In fact, the prosecution pointed out at the a lot of the bystanders, some of the bystanders actually called the cops on the cop
Yeah,
because they're like, someone's being murdered. So, I mean, that's pretty fucking sad to me. That's
yeah,
just like in a horror movie when you're like, oh, please help me, officer. And he's like one of the Borg too. Only the Borg is the cops. So that's like
exactly. Dude, and
no distinction
one
there.
of the witnesses was an EMT who wanted to perform like CPR on him because she like asked the cop like, "Oh, he's not breathing. Like, can I perform CPR? I'm licensed to do so." And the cop said no, and then she even offered to show them how to do it, and the cops were like, "No." So it's just like, I mean, the problem with this, like this verdict is that, like, I mean, we all know this, right? We're speaking to the choir. Hopefully the people watching is like, this is like an indictment of, sure, one individual, but it's not an indictment of the system. And the fact that the other cops that were there, I mean, I think we could even see this with like with Eric Garner, right? And the EMTs who arrived, who didn't do what they should have done, like, even though he had already been dead at that point, but at least the humanity of it, right? To like, try to like resuscitate this guy and not just like desecrate his body. Like, that's premeditated murder, right? Like, for all of the cops there who were like allowed that and watched that shit happen. It's like, it's just so insane, man. I don't know if it's, I mean, I know people are celebrating, but it's, you know, it's a Pyrrhic victory is what it is, man.
Celebrating for what? Like, what is there to
Exactly.
celebrate? The
Exactly.
only thing that would be worth celebrating is if George Floyd was still alive, but he's not. And what really disgusted me this morning was waking up and seeing that Jamel Hill had interviewed Alicia Garza from the Black Lives Matter Global Network, and there were some questions swirling around about what Black Lives Matter has been doing with the money, and how is it that Patrice Cullors is buying a $1.2 million home out in like Topanga Valley, California, and how is it that BLM Global Network has been raking in all this money while victims of or families of victims who've been lost due to police violence and vigilantes and other like related matters. How is it that they're like starving? How is it that they're not able to pay their bills? How is it that they're not able to like bury the family members while BLM's been making all this money? And her answer to that was, well, we're winning. We've changed the dynamics of power. We've changed balance of power. And I'm like, what the fuck kind of changed balance of power are you talking about? We're still dying out here. Like, black folks they're still being shot by police. I I actually had to close social media when I saw that a 15-year-old girl was killed by police.
Oh,
We've seen the video of a 13-year-old being shot dead by after being told that he had a gun in his hand. Obviously, there was nothing in his hand. He was shot dead by police. Like, how much of this do we have to repeat? And then one trial for one police officer that killed a black man results in his conviction, which is then going to result in years upon years of appeals and suck all kinds of money out of out of system and out of taxpayer dollars and whatnot. What is there to celebrate? So it's like, great, he's going to jail. And what about everybody else? So I have a hard time, seeing this and seeing what there is to celebrate, because I don't even expect there to be systemic change. There is no changing the system. The system is fucked up and it's doing exactly what it's designed to do. So I don't know. I have a hard time with it, and that's why I haven't really been paying much attention.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I will say I had an emotional reaction when I heard the verdict still on the radio, and I think part of it was just how surprised people were about even this tiny bit of non-justice, you know? Just how fucked up things have to be for people to be shocked and jubilant over this tiny fucking scrap. First time a white cop in Minnesota has ever been convicted of a crime for killing somebody. Like,
Yeah.
That's just
But
depressing.
think about what it means though, because when everybody was watching and anticipating the news of the verdict, what were they hearing outside the windows? Everybody who lives in a metropole was hearing helicopters. From New York to LA, people were hearing helicopters outside the houses because police were mobilizing just in case things went the wrong way. And what does it mean for every single time that a black person dies at the hands of police, and we see it and we march and demand justice and so forth? What happens immediately thereafter? Well, police are getting overtime money to put on riot gear and shoot tear gas canisters in the backs and faces of protesters, and they're getting paid overtime for that. They're getting money shoveled at them by the municipalities. They're getting money shoveled at them by the federal government. They're being told that their backs are against the wall and they need more help. They need more anti-bias training. They need more de-escalation training. They need training and money for this, that, and the third. And the only answer that politicians ever seem to come up with is giving the police more money. So in a way, if you think about it, like this, if you see this as a victory, I feel very badly for you, because what's happened is we were told that George Floyd is on the ballot, Breonna Taylor is on the ballot, and what was done with those ballots? Electing Joe Biden, the architect of the crime bill, electing Kamala Harris,
Exactly.
the former district attorney of San Francisco and the former attorney general of California, and during her entire tenure under both positions, did her absolute level best to persecute and oppress black people, to persecute and oppress trans people, undocumented people. And the policies that they've carried into the White House are no different than they have been throughout their entire careers. And what have they both done is use the COVID 19 bill to shovel more money at police departments. So on the one hand, we're being told that this is justice, and that Joe Biden even called up George Floyd's family, and talking about this is the first of many steps towards what? There is no reconciliation with these people. You know what I mean? So I just, I'm like, where do we go from here? Like, what direction does this take? Because all it seems to be is finding excuses to give more money to police, and there's no accountability for them. Like, one person is not accountability for an entire system.
No. And
There was a police shooting just outside of, like, Mayor Jacob Fry, whatever. Anyway, he had to go out and hold a press conference to tell people again, please maintain peace and order. Why? Because another police officer in a town nearby went ahead and shot a black teenager. So it's just like, when the fuck does this ever stop? You know what I mean? And sorry, he wasn't a teenager. He was a very young man that had a child, and his family loved him, and his family has been incredibly emotional and out in the open about this. And it's just like, when does this stop? It's never going to stop underneath the system. So there is no changing, no reforming it from the inside. There's only dismantling it.
Yeah, man. In Atlanta, when you were talking about them getting like overtime and instead of being punished, like they're being rewarded, right? In Atlanta, I think there at one point cops from a certain precinct neighborhood, I think APD writ large, but I think specifically like maybe in Southwest Atlanta, these are predominantly like working class black neighborhoods historically. So, and cops just refuse to like show up, right? And Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor, I think a couple days later, for commending them for their performance, like during like the uprising over the summer, gave them bonuses, right? And this is like in reaction to these cops, like, because this is what they do, right? Like part of what they do, there's an argument to be made that whenever they're being criticized, right, they stop doing the sort of like not even just petty crime, right, but just even like the shit that they probably should be, like if police like actually did the job that they should be doing, right, stopping violent crime, which we could even talk about like, well, violent, like how does that originate, right? Like how do we determine like what laws and what is like unlawful or not? But still, like they'll pull back from the streets, right? And when crime rises, they'll say, well, this is why you need us, right? Because when we don't do shit, right, like it's anarchy. And the fact that instead elected officials, like even Bill de Blasio, like over the summer, I think his daughter was I don't know if she was doxxed, but her information was released like when she got arrested during the protest. And the some police union released it on Twitter, and Twitter actually had to censor it or delete the tweet because they were essentially doxing her. And Bill de Blasio, maybe a week later, congratulates the police again, as Keisha Lance Bottoms does, by giving them bonuses for their performance during this protest. As you said, Andre, there's nothing that you can do because politicians themselves are afraid of the cops. Prosecutors have to work with cops in order to prosecute crimes, right? They don't want to go after a cop. And Derek Chauvin, honestly, was just a sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
He was just a sacrifice. You just throw him, and out there and say, like, well, we individualize this problem. This guy was one bad guy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even the police chief currently, right, of the MPD said that what he did was out of character and not within the bounds of their training, right? And sure, he's a black cop, but he's still a fucking cop, dude. You know what I mean? Like, even he understands the stakes. So, like, yeah, there's nothing to celebrate about, man. Like, there is really no justice until, like, as you said, Andre, George Floyd would still be alive, right? That would be justice,
Mm-hmm. Or if it never happened to anyone ever again.
Exactly.
Guess what? It's still fucking happening. I think really the theme of the day is going to be recuperation, specifically the recuperation of radical social movements by the left wing of Capitol as represented by the Democratic Party. And that is something that we need to be watching out for. And I think if you're watching right now, you probably already are. But like, even I feel a little bit nervous as a white person, criticizing something that so many Black people are happy about, who am I to say this doesn't matter? Because it does matter to a lot of people. But at the same time, I'm like, no,
Yo,
like
honestly,
this is actually, it's not justice.
Honestly, I'll tell you, like, I mean, this is anecdotal, but even today, like, when I was in the city and hanging out earlier, this black guy, like, just walked up to me. And this is when I found out that the verdict was going to be announced soon. And he just walked up to me and said, like, what do you think is going to happen? And I was like, well, man, it really doesn't matter. Like, basically what we just talked about, right? And he actually, like, agreed with me, man. Like, he was talking about, like, basically, like, this model of, like, insurrection is what he said. I forget the example that he was using. And, I didn't spend much time talking to this guy about his politics, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I haven't spoken to my mom yet, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, sure, like, people kind of are, maybe Black people are maybe sort of like, I don't want to say breathing a sigh of relief, right? But maybe like, okay, this turned out the way I didn't think it was going to turn out. But I wouldn't be surprised if more people than maybe we think are like, feel the way that, this is just one person, right? And in another, like, when the case with Adam Toledo, when that happens in another 6 to 9 months, right? We'll see how that verdict turns out, like, and I mean, that's like, I mean, I don't know, like, not to ramble, but those are the energies that I think we got to harness, because my mom hit me up during the summer, texted me, like, and said, when I was at a protest actually, and said, I always thought that your views were too radical. But like, now I'm understanding, when I was a nanny from the West Indies, a woman from the West Indies, and I was a nanny for upper middle class white families, the way that they treated me. And the fact that she could draw like this parallel between the racism that she faced as a nanny versus, like, the systemic racism of police brutality, and could text me about it, right, and come around, so that when I got arrested and I told her I was in jail and I got shot with a rubber bullet, she was like, oh, she wasn't mad, She was like, yo, I guess she called it a good trouble, right? She used the John Lewis thing,
Aww.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Your mom sounds so cool.
Oh, she's a mom rat, yeah.
And when I failed to visit you in Atlanta, Aaron, I said it was because I had to get back, but I was really just waiting till your mom was going to be there.
Oh, dude, yo, my mom would love to meet you.
I want to meet your mom. Sorry.
Yeah. And my mom would like to meet you too, Andre, because I told her I met another West Indian Jamaican comrade online, and she was like, really? And I was like, yo, he's a fucking writer for this prestigious Canadian magazine. She was looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing then? I was like, yo, chill, bro. Like,
that's what you don't ever tell Jamaican moms about somebody else's accomplishments, because they just start looking at you sideways.
Yeah.
So wait this. Hold on. And work. So am I right for your Canadian magazine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
What is you doing with her life?
Bob, I'm tweeting. I told you, Bob. It's a podcast. It's an internet radio show.
Oh, nice. Well, shall we watch some of these deeply diseased videos? I feel like I'm torturing you guys. It's like the Obama episode all over
No,
again.
listen, it's
if
420.
if it's an
and I've
Nancy
been
Pelosi
celebrating all
video,
day, so I'm ready.
if it's an Nancy Pelosi video, I may have to get up and leave. Like, absolutely not. I saw
Oh,
it once,
man.
and that was enough for me.
Oh, well, you can close your eyes then, because it's definitely on
God.
here.
Okay.
No, listen, for me personally, given the holiday, I'm very zen right now. So I think I could take anything right now.
Right.
You know.
Great. I'm it's yes, happy 420. I totally forgot to wish you a happy holiday. I know it's one of the
Thank
high
you.
holidays for you. And
It's like Christmas.
Oh yeah,
except
you
for real.
also celebrate 420 because it's not legal anymore, or it's not legal. But with us, it's like it's the same as every other day because it's always legal.
Exactly. Every day is 420.
well,
Exactly.
today in New York was the first 420 where recreational
Oh,
weed is
shit.
legal, and I smelled it. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Don't want to be a narc. Definitely smelled some on the street while I
Can
was
you?
waiting outside of the vet's office.
I don't know the specifics of the bill, but can you you can smoke, I guess, when these places come up, like pubs and like lounges. You can smoke there, right? You can smoke in public in certain places, right?
I'm not sure. I haven't really walked out on the specifics, nor has anyone, which is why people are just doing what they
Because
feel
people would
like.
do what they would do even
Like-
if it wasn't legal. Like it's the same
Yeah,
fucking thing. Nothing
They're like,
changed.
yay, weed is legal. We're not going to read the fine print. But I feel like you won't get in very big trouble for
Okay,
it,
cool.
regardless of what you do. But I'm sure the parks were very jubilant, full of fun, full of friends,
Yes.
of smokables. I did not partake because I was, as discussed, at the vet, and then I was going to do this with you guys. And I am, unlike you, Aaron, I am not a high functioning stoner. I can't do anything when I'm high.
Yeah.
Out of
I've been
respect,
doing it for a very long time. So
Well,
out of
some of my
respect for
best
you
writing has come
guys,
out of me being high.
I cannot
Yeah.
write while I'm high. That's surprising. I can't write when I'm
Oh,
I
when I'm
can't
high,
do
I write like a
anything.
month. Yeah.
stoned. Really? God damn.
Oh, jealous. I'm jealous. I do like to watch cartoons and eat snacks. It's like all I can fucking do, but that's, to be expected. But okay, I have some clips that I want to play. And maybe we can arm the people with some good critiques that we have of these. Yeah, everyone just pieced out as soon as I said that.
I mean, I'm listening.
But we got Joe. I feel like we should see what the president said, and then we can make fun of him a little bit, and maybe it'll be on some level fun. Oh, we got Nancy Pelosi too. We could do that first. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
All right.
Boy.
Okay, I'm ready.
Her brain is fucking dying, folks. All right.
We live in a gerontocracy. All of their brains are dying.
I'm telling
It's-
yo, when those two finally fucking expire, a pack is going up into the atmosphere. I'm telling you right now. Oh, I'm smoking on that Biden pack, bro. That
Smoking on
Pelosi
the-
pack? A Pelosi pack gonna be crazy.
Lemon
It's
strain
gonna be ice cream flavored. Yeah.
Wait, what
You
are
have
you
like an ice cream
smoking?
aftertaste.
Oh my God, yeah.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice,
What the fuck?
for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice. Thank you,
bro.
George Floyd.
That is the wildest. Yo, man. Son. Yo. I mean, sacrificing his as if he was a willing martyr and just not
Like he
another
nobody
fucking
laid himself down on the fucking
Yeah.
pavement. He laid
sacrificed
down on
his
the pavement
life.
underneath Derek Chauvin's knee to say, This is the sacrifice that I will make so that America can finally know peace. Get the
bro. This is
what would possess you to say something like that?
Yo, because she's a fucking liberal, and this is the way these people fucking view the world, yo. It's like it's the fact that like these like systemic racism and like poverty and all this like war is just natural, right? So like the best thing that you could do in this case, instead of saying that like he was like not just a victim but a fucking statistic like of a racial capitalist like system of policing, it's like no, this was like a unique, like unprecedented moment in the movement that arose out of it that like finally like called out, you know, racial like injustice in this country instead of it just being like the ambient background noise in which we fucking live, yo. It's insane. It's so fucking insane, yo.
Well, wait, there's a follow-up tweet, guys.
Oh my god, dude.
Don't worry.
No, yo.
She's
I didn't know this was
Right.
this bad, Jamie. Holy shit, dude.
clarified
What
the context.
This is
for
the
her
Obama
About to punch my
autobiography
screen.
episode all over again.
Yo, this is
Like I
part 2,
said.
like times 1,000, yo. What the fuck, dude?
Oh my God. Yeah. So I feel like she kind of knew, or somebody on her team kind of knew.
Oh,
that
so they followed
statement
up to
was
clarify.
Pretty yikes. So, you know, they followed up to clarify, and I quote,
Justice in policing. Oh God.
George
Justice
Floyd
in
should
policing,
be
bro.
alive today. His family's calls
Bro.
for justice for his murder were heard around the world. He did not die in vain. We must make sure other families don't suffer the same racism, violence, and pain, and we must enact the George Floyd #Justice in Policing Act.
Bro, you know what's so insane is like again the individualization of systemic issues. They're naming this act after him. Where like what happened over the summer, I hated the fact that people called it the George Floyd uprisings because it was just like something that had been bubbling, right, for a very long time in this country, and which only like took this like form that the media captured and like kind of caught on to people's sentiments because one, you're seeing this guy dig his knee into this dude's neck, and it was also COVID, right? And the fact that younger people especially were able to like go out in the streets and like had felt so incensed about this and weren't like tethered to like work or school necessarily, you know? It's just like the George, like, what are you talking about, man? Like, this is insane.
A lot of other people have been killed by the police. But you know what? If it actually was the catalyst for some steps towards defunding with an eye towards abolition, it would be fine naming the act after him. But that's not what it is. And I'm
It's
gonna
not what it
wonk
is.
out. I'm gonna wonk out about it in a second. But I feel like we should also watch the Joe Biden video just to torture
Oh my
ourselves.
God.
like a
Okay, this
tiny
is
bit
gonna make me
more.
laugh a little bit. Joe Biden's funnier. Nancy Pelosi saying that's not funny. Joe Biden makes me laugh. Not as much as Trump, but it's kind of
Nobody's as funny as Trump.
nah, man. Comedy king.
You know, he's got Kamala standing behind him.
Today, a jury in Minnesota found former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin guilty on all counts in the murder of George Floyd last May. It was a murder in the full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see the systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. The systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. The knee on the neck of justice for Black Americans. Profound fear and trauma. The pain, the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. The murder of George Floyd launched a summer of protest we hadn't seen since the civil rights era in the 60s. Protest,
That's all it
unified
was.
people of every race and generation in peace and with purpose.
Peace.
say
It was peaceful
enough.
protests.
Enough of this senseless killings.
He's really saying enough of the protests. Like that was like a, you know, it's like
Oh.
that.
He's doing what the Democratic Party always does when there is a radical social movement, which is tame it and recuperate it back into itself and let all the air out of the tires, you know? Like friend of the show Idris Robinson said in his talk that he gave at Red May Seattle last year. They're pretending like this did not happen. liberal media is pretending like there were no insurrectionary elements, right? It was all just protest. And both the far right and the far left acknowledge that it happened,
Yeah.
for all, like, obviously they're evil as shit,
Yeah.
but
But for
like
different reasons.
right-wing media was the only media that recognized radical potential of what was happening. And I just kind of wish that the liberal establishment would get out of the way and let us have the final showdown already.
But they're
Yeah.
never gonna. Here's the thing, though, is like that's what their job is. That's what they're always going to do. They're always going to co-opt and create a pressure valve for people to like divert their insurrectionary energy into electoral politics. Like that's what their job is. And I think at this point, like it requires a difference in tactics, if not a difference in strategy altogether. Like you have to know that Joe Biden is going to say these things. You have to know that Nancy Pelosi is going to say these things. You have to know that there are going to be people in the community that are celebrating this as a victory for justice. You also have to know that people are going to like make a stand on it and try to like create even more, I guess, like attention and fame for themselves. There's going to be no end of 501c3 corporations created. There's going to be no end of NGOification of the movement towards not just justice, but a movement towards the end of the system. Like those stakes are baked into the equation. So then the question becomes, all right, well, how do we get around that? Because they're never going to stop. Like liberals are, they're never going to stop acting like this. And it doesn't matter how many tweets people dunk on social media. It doesn't matter how mad people get on streams and podcasts. None of that shit matters. What matters is their ability to co-opt the energy of these protests has never been threatened. And we need to find ways to threaten it. I don't have the answer to that question. It's just that's what needs to happen now. Otherwise, we're going to see no end of this. The system is going to continue functioning as it does, killing black people. And one of the things that he said that disgusted me was when he said that there's always this phrase black and brown, which is like, I get that like people of non-black backgrounds who are still people of color face their own oppressions within the system, but the way that black people are positioned within the system is unique to black people. And there's always this need to sort of like relate the black experience to everybody else's, as if these are oppressions that we all face. But again, that's what the act of co-optation does, is to take people's minds off of the fact that there is a unique position that black people find themselves in as relates to their capacity to be oppressed by the system and to find themselves constantly in a subordinate class. So knowing that this is the case, what do we do next? I don't have the answer to that question, but we can't keep somebody I know that pointed this out last week, saying that whenever police kill somebody, this was actually after the Dante Wright shooting, after a white police officer kills a black person, a protest happens, and it's like salmon swimming upstream to the bears waiting on the banks. They're waiting to be kettled, they're waiting to be tear gassed, they're waiting to be locked up in jail overnight, and then face like football numbers in prison on some trumped up terrorist related charges, right? So there's got to be some other way to do this, because the way that we've been doing it for the last, not just for the last year, but for the last several years, doesn't produce results. And if we're looking at this trial as the result, if this is supposed to be the culmination of all those years, then that's a very sad situation that I just don't want to cope with. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to point out, Andray, I think that like the co-optation of like radical energies and this sort of flattening of contradictions, right? Especially this meld and meshing of the phrase like black and brown, right? Or people of color, right? Without, as you said, acknowledging and peeling back the contradictions and actually like understanding the way black people have particularly been positioned in this country through a racial caste system and a system of racial capitalism. I think that that's the most insidious part, man. And what worries me is that it's just not how the elite is going to respond to this and take it as some sort of victory, but the way that, again, like I'm thinking of people like my mom, right? Because my mom is a good litmus test, right? And a barometer, right, for stuff like this, because she's not as deeply diseased as any of us here are. She like cares about this stuff, but she like is also like sort of just trying to like live like her life like the way that like she's been taught to, right? which is like, for me, like that's the best like barometer of like any sort of like normalcy, the way average people are feeling about issues, especially because they do tend to care about these issues, you know. But I'm worried about if these people are going to feel placated, you know, like at the one hand, yeah, she might acknowledge like this isn't enough, but like what happens for like the rest of America, right? What happens for like even the movement, you know? Like, are people like, what happens like this summer, you know? Are people going to feel like they shouldn't be out in the streets because we got one indictment, you know? Or how are we gonna, like, as you said, Andre, change our tactics? Because again, yo, the police, the fact that they basically ride beside you when you protest in the streets, and you have to, like, if you want a big enough protest, you have to, like, you know, make calls to the city and get a permit and do all this shit. Like, that's not working, right? Like, we're being allowed to be like parade around while they make sure that, like, you know, we don't get the opportunity to like challenge those levers of power. So I don't have the answers either. Like, I don't fucking know what we do, right?
You guys brought up a lot of different things that I want to
Yeah.
address and talk about. I mean, first of all, like we'll go back and forth as to whether this is a black issue, whether this is a working class issue, yada yada. And of course, the answer is both. Because I think more and more black oppression is the more I learn, the more I believe that it is part of the backbone of this capitalist system that exploits everybody. And the more I think that Black liberation is really the skeleton key in many ways to overthrowing capitalist exploitation. So, on that sense, it affects everybody in the working class, certainly. It, like if you look back to the history, you know, the material origins of race, um, you could tell what class someone was. You could tell the status of their labor by the color of their skin. So, like going back into history, there are real material reasons for this. You know, like it pisses me off when people try to act like, you know, I'm class first, and that means not dealing with race. Like no, like you have to deal with race in order to deal with class,
Well,
So
especially in this
the
country.
very first black person to have been, deposited on a Portuguese ship and sailed back to Spain for the purpose of explaining to the Spanish regent that the colonies, which found themselves bereft of labor due to the extirpation of indigenous people, could be replaced by African labor. The slavery started as a commercial system, right? It wasn't just because people hated people. It started as a commercial venture, and the Queen Elizabeth I and Philip and Catherine of Aragon, like the the very people that were on the one hand um, facing a pogrom, or not facing a pogrom, but that were inflicting a pogrom on Jewish people, were at the very same time uh, uh, chartering vessels to kidnap people from the African continent and send them over to the Caribbean islands. This was happening at the very same time. Slaving vessels were departing at the very same time that vessels full of Jewish people were departing. Like the entire venture was commercial in nature. So yeah, it absolutely does have to be confronted because race is a class marker, and it has been for the last several hundred years. But and I think you're right, Jamie, that there does have to be a conversation about black liberation in any conversation about any kind of socialist uprising, whether you want to call it reform, revolution, or whatever. Not just for that reason, but also for the fact that every successful socialist revolution that has ever taken place, except for one, happened in the global south, happened in non-white countries. There's been one example, which was the Russian Revolution, and everything after that has been revolutions in the quote unquote global south. It's been in non-white countries. So, if you want to talk about like what the future of socialism looks like, you're gonna have to look towards the people that have actually pulled it off, like have actually like been able to pull off revolution. And for the most part, it hasn't been white folks. So I have a hard time hearing anybody talk to me about what socialism and what a socialist revolution would look like in North America if it doesn't have black people, if it doesn't have people of color, if it doesn't have indigenous people at the heart and forefront of it.
yeah, I think Andre, isn't that the Stuart Hall quote? Race is the modality in which classes lived, right?
Yep.
That's the best. That's the best for me understanding of the dialectic nature of like race and class, right? Like they're inextricably linked. You can't separate them.
I mean, I come from a bit more of a left com perspective, in that I'm not sure what any of these revolutions necessarily what their relationship will or won't be to the project of building global communism. And I think might only be able to know that in retrospect. I'm very agnostic about it. But certainly people have done some things that were pretty cool in the global
Yeah.
south. I will give them that for sure.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? Oh, I mean, Joe Biden also said like liberals love to say the word systemic racism, but like what are the systems? Like they never name the
Yeah, they
systems
never
that
named
they're
the system
talking
to the problem.
about.
They can never name the system because Kamala Harris, when she was asked, had said that she's a capitalist at heart, right? She's a capitalist through and through. She can
Yeah.
never name what the system is. The system is not this like this ethereal, unknowable, ambiguous thing. It's not this amorphous, like spiritual, malevolent entity.
Yeah, it's not a
that
Hegelian
visits
entity.
itself-
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it visits itself upon black bodies 1 minute and then disappears the next.
The
It's
ghost
not
of
the fucking
racist
mist,
past. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
It's not some eldritch horror. It's not out of a Stephen King novel. It's fucking capitalism, and they can never name it for what it is because they would then be naming themselves as enemies. Like it's just let's not even like play around with it.
But
And the
they're
thing is, I'll
saying the
never expect
words
them to say
though.
it either.
Well,
Huh?
Elizabeth Warren.
They're saying the magic words.
Yeah,
What did
yeah.
what did Elizabeth Warren say? Like, this is why, like, I have my still the Liberty Green profile thing because she's perfect, man. She said, capitalism without rules is theft, and she was like putting the shirt
God.
on like her
They
fucking
made
website.
shirts out of it.
Yeah, they made shirts out of it, and it's like, dude,
Like, did
that is
people
like
buy them?
so. Dude, that's even more insidious than, frankly, like Biden's like neoliberal project, like this like faux progressivism she's doing, because it's like
It's so
literally
bad.
like you are like
Oh, it's not
telling
full
people.
progressivism. That's what the purpose of progressivism is to disguise these
Yes,
things.
And it's super sad because I feel like she doesn't even realize it. Like these left liberals really believe that they're
Oh.
doing the right thing, trying to create the best of all possible worlds by perfecting the
like Robert
bourgeois
Reich.
state.
It's called
It's
organizing
Robert Reich
everywhere,
really
sweetie.
saving capitalism.
Yeah.
Organizing everywhere. It's saving capitalism, man. That's
That's what
essentially
they're
like just what
doing.
they want to do.
And like the people in charge aren't even fucking listening to them. Like I promise you, Joe Biden cares more what the fucking Lincoln Project thinks than what Elizabeth Warren or sad to say but true, Bernie Sanders thinks.
I was just about to say he don't give a fuck about bro. You know what I was
You
joking
mean to
about
tell
with
me
the
that Joe
Trillbillies?
Biden doesn't care about Bernie Sanders' proposals to tax the wealthy? You want to tell me he doesn't care about that?
Tax the 1%.
God.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I was joking with the Trillbillies. I was like, you know how they pulled out the parliamentarian, which is something that at least like most people, and I think I would like to think of myself as like, like a wonk, or at least someone who like looks into parliamentarianism just to understand like how the shit works. I had no idea who the parliamentarian was. And I was joking, like anytime Bernie tries to do something, they're gonna pull out this tome and like blow the dust off and like flip the page like 1000 and tell him exactly like this is why you can't do it, Senator Sanders.
Oh yeah.
Now we have the ombudsman.
Some ghosts are gonna fly out of the book like, whoa! This is exactly why you can't do that, Bernie.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my God. So I also wanted to talk about
You mean to
this.
tell me that I can't? I was there when it was written. This was in 1893.
I met the guy who did it. Yeah.
Oh my God. I like y'all's Bernie impression. It makes me happy and sad at the same time.
But when you're from Brooklyn, you say water and coffee, it makes it easier.
Mhm. Mhm. I know about your secret New York past.
I know, man. I try to hide it,
Yeah, you're a
Really
Trillbilly now.
Yeah, I'm a Trillbilly now. I
You
can
can't
never
be
move
talking
from the
that Yankee talk.
South, man.
Oh my God. So like not to make it depressing again, but I do think it's important that you guys brought up this sort of NGOification of the Black Lives Matter movement because I talked about this the other day, but there was basically like a Twitter thread by Megan Day that people were getting mad about. Um, and I do think she was wrong in it, but basically she was trying to reckon with fact that public support, you could say for whatever polls are worth, for Black Lives Matter movement in general has gone down since the height of it last summer. And she thinks it's because the demand to defund the police, which she supports, is too easily conflated with the demand to abolish the police, which she does not support as some sort of sock dem sock, whatever. And that's why it lost support. I think it's actually the exact opposite, right? I think it's because the
Sorry, who
defund
was this again?
movement,
Megan
uh,
Day.
not important. Jacobin
What the
writer Megan
fuck does
Day.
Megan Day know about any of this shit? Like,
Exactly.
when has she ever
that's
been
why I'm
subject to
laughing,
any
bro.
of it?
That's why
I
I'm
mean,
laughing.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm just saying, like, what is she? First of all, what's her family background? What does she do for a living? What the fuck would she know about any of this?
Nigga, she
I'm
writes for a
seriously asking.
socialist
look.
magazine. She writes for a socialist magazine, bro. That's
She
Okay,
could
but who
be
is she
Come on,
though?
son.
Who is
Like,
she?
exactly.
could
Exactly.
be wrong for reasons totally unrelated to her class background, just like I'm right for reasons unrelated to mine.
Okay,
But anyway,
Man,
I'm just
I
saying, like, what
I think
I mean, come on, man.
when has she ever been threatened by the existence of police? Is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
Like, do the police
never.
do the police not reinforce her class position as it is anyway? So what would she know about that? And who the fuck is she to tell
Well,
anybody about
I
whether she
mean, if
believe about
you're a
abolition or not?
socialist,
Speak of it.
you're gonna call. I mean, if you're gonna call yourself a socialist,
Yeah.
as she does, it is important to understand the purpose that police and prisons serve to, uphold capitalism.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that, then I'm not sure you can
Racial
really call yourself
capitalism, right? Like
socialist. I
specifically,
mean, I
like,
feel like calling it racial capitalism is a little
well, I
redundant.
mean, like,
Like,
it is redundant, but for me, it's
capitalism
especially
is
helpful.
racial.
But especially for me, it's helpful because, like, there are, like, again, like, it sounds weird that these people even exist, but like people who like are not able to understand that this is a dialectical process. And like for me personally, right? Like when I think about like, Black people, like, who are being moved out of their neighborhoods, like gentrifying neighborhoods, like especially that element of it. It's not just like the idea that you go to work, right? And your surplus labor is robbed from you, right? Like specifically the way that it affects Black people in America, like it's like, again, what the fuck would she know about that, right? Like, yo, yeah, sure, nobody Black or white wants to look in their rearview mirror and see a cop pulling them over. When that shit happens to a Black person, especially, yo, like that is the kind of terror that like white people will
That's a
never be able
whole
to
other
fucking
kettle of fish
understand,
because you
bro.
don't know if you don't know if you're going home from that encounter. Yeah.
Bro, when cops drive behind me, yo, like I like freak the fuck out. Like I do not like that shit, man. Like I get into like panic mode, yo. Like
I find it frightening, and I am a small white woman, so I can only imagine. I can only imagine what it must be like. It's terrifying. I feel it just
yeah.
I mean, it's why we got to do the thing. It's one of many reasons why we got to do the thing. But what I was
Jamie, go ahead, yeah, please.
What I was gonna say was about the sort of like, why did this support go down? I mean, first of all, I'm not gonna put that much stock in a poll taken that's some lib shit and of like a very propagandized population, obviously, that has been receiving certain messages, say having their consent manufactured since the day they were born. But also, I think if anything, is kind of the opposite of what she's saying. I think when things were at their most radical, like the burning of the police precinct in Minneapolis polled very well, actually. A lot of people thought it was justified. And then, oh, what happened? We turned BLM into an NGO and we're getting tied up in these, legislative campaigns that don't go anywhere. I feel like that's when the energy kind of petered out.
Yeah.
It's my theory anyway.
What do you think, Andre? Why do
It's
you
not.
think
It's not a theory. It's just what happened. It's not even really a theory. Like you're stating facts.
Yeah.
So I don't know when I see people like that, and I'm sorry, it's just when I see white people that know nothing about this shit try to tell the rest of us who are subject to this kind of like oppression and violence that you will never know anything about, try to tell us exactly like how we need to properly word our political project or political agenda, which is like to simply no longer be oppressed in such a way that it strikes the white ear properly, and that it strikes a dulcet tone in their ears and they want to get along with and agree with us. Like I that disgusts me as a human being. It fucking disgusts me. And you should, like, I don't know, Megan Day should never open her fucking yap again and speak on any of this shit, because she's never been subject to it. She doesn't know jack shit about it, and she'll never be subject to that kind of violence, ever. So no, I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear shit she has to. Matter of fact, like now that, like, ever since she started talking about that, I don't want to hear shit else she has to say about anything. Because if you're this out of touch about this one issue that's affecting people in such a way that, you know, that we're both like, we're not just passionate about it. Like, we're passionate about it because our lives are at stake. You have nothing at stake. Like, you've got no skin in the game whatsoever. Literally no fucking skin in the game. I don't want to hear jack shit you have to say about anything from, going forward.
Yeah,
You know what I
it's
mean?
not like I just read theory, but I live it. If you don't understand that this
Yeah.
issue is the cornerstone of like global capitalism, W. Du Bois in Black Reconstruction, says it best that he uses the terms the black and yellow people of the world, right? The fact that their labor is what constitutes Western society. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't understand that and you call yourself a socialist, like, you don't understand that abolition is like the end goal that it has to be, because otherwise, like, not just black and brown people, whatever, people, like, I'm just saying working people will never fucking be free. Like, I don't really think that your opinion is valid. You know what I mean? Like, it's not
Yeah.
about sloganeering or taking a moderate position. It's actually like a systemic look at how the society arises and how it's proceeded. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Let's dig into that a little bit, because I feel like there are a lot of people who identify as socialists, or who maybe are new to the socialist movement, who don't really understand why abolition is so central to the socialist project. Let's go over some of that a little bit, because I think it's really important. I think a lot of it goes back to the state, right? Which, if we read our Marx, our Lenin, our other stuff, I'm sure my anarchist reply guys are gonna get mad that I'm not name checking any anarchists here. Anarchists wrote about it too. Um,
Okay.
this
No, I'm kidding. I'm
But
just
nobody
playing. I'm
cares,
playing.
so we can skip past all
Exactly.
that.
Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a fuck. That's fine.
I care. I care. The state, as we know, is fundamentally an instrument of class rule, of one class's domination over the other, right? In the case of the bourgeois state, it is the boss class dominating the workers, because you need the implied threat of violence in order to keep the workers in line. And how do they do that? They do that with prisons and with police. Now, it also benefits capital to have something called a reserve army of labor, right? People who are not currently required by the formal capitalist economy for whatever reason. Because if we had full employment, workers would have a lot more leverage, a lot more bargaining power. So capital benefits from having these surplus populations, this reserve army of labor. But in the meantime, you got to do something with them, right? And that's where police and prisons come in. And of course, this is a very racialized category as well, especially this country. And it's not like they're just warehousing a reserve army of labor that exists, right? They're going out and they're reiterating it and they're recreating it every day. Like, just think about how much it fucks your life up when you get arrested for some bullshit because the cops were in your community. They're reiterating that, they're recreating it, and they're doing racecraft at the same time. Like, if you guys are into the Field Sisters at all, like the project of continually constructing this thing that we call race, which is not, as we know, an essential category of humanity, but it is, it's a real abstraction.
Yeah. It's essential for capitalist hegemony, domination, right, by the ruling class, especially so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a quote, if I may, because
Yeah,
my friend Yuri from my caucus wrote a piece on kind of abolition and the state and communism, and I like the way he finishes it. So he says, from the Marxist perspective, prison abolition isn't like replacing a coal furnace with a solar panel. It's like wresting a gun from an assailant's hand. It's no surprise that Lenin defined a revolutionary's job as, quote, the art of combating the political police. We can't remove cops but keep capitalism, or remove capitalism but keep cops, because the cops are part of capitalism's last line of defense. To fight one is necessarily to fight both, and we have no choice but to win. Boom.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
Well, we can also refer to Lenin, right, where he talks about the quote unquote special bodies of armed men.
exactly.
And he
That's
says
exactly
that,
what I was gonna say. Yeah.
yeah, he says it's impossible now because civilized society is divided into antagonistic and indeed irreconcilably antagonistic classes, the self-acting arming of which would lead to an armed struggle between them. A state arises, a special force is created in the form of special bodies of armed men, i.e. police, in the military, and every revolution by destroying the state apparatus demonstrates to us how the ruling class strives to restore the special bodies of armed men which serve it, and how the oppressed class strives to create a new organization of this kind, capable of serving not the exploiters, but the exploited. Right? So what he's saying is that like under a capitalist system, and under a system where there is a ruling class and an exploited class, the contradictions that are held intact by the state have to be enforced by those special bodies of armed men, i.e. police and the military. So there's no way in a socialist calculation that the continued existence of a police force that serves that ruling class is ever going to be able to serve the oppressed class. Like, you can't reform the police into joining your side. They exist for the purpose of reifying the they exist for the purpose of reifying the ruling class's power over the oppressed classes, and also to help resolve those contradictions.
Exactly. They're, as London says, like, these special bodies of armed men, or like even like the guard dogs of capital, right? Like, the slogan protect and serve is so funny because it's like protect and serve whom, right? You're protecting like a racial like hierarchy and like serving capitalism, right? Like that's what your job actually is, right? And I don't know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but like, as far as I know from like, revolutions that have taken place throughout the world, like in many cases the army, right, like would join like the people, right? I think especially the Russian Revolution, given the Russo-Japanese War and the exhaustion, right, of Russian soldiers, and also not being paid, right, that caused them to like resist against the Tsar and join the people. But the police, though, like that doesn't really happen, right? It's always like people clashing in the streets with police, right? And not just like having to fight against like soldiers coming home, who often again like kind of join with the people. And it's because like, I mean, there's nothing that's kind of more like more of a symbol of like capitalism than the case that I think we saw in the Pacific Northwest a couple weeks ago. I forget what city, what state, but where they were guarding food, cops were guarding food, right, that was thrown out of a supermarket that wasn't even like went bad, but they were guarding it because people who were hungry during the pandemic and wanting for food were going to go in there and take it out, right? Like, if you
And it
don't
was
think
people
that
who worked for a mutual aid organization too. Like they
yes,
knew
exactly.
what to do. They weren't going to poison people with it.
Exactly. Like the fact that a police officer like can do that in one job, and the image that other people think on the other spectrum is like, saving a cat from a tree, or like, saving a child or something. The fact that these two very different acts can be held in one position, right? You really have to ask yourself, like, what the fuck are these people for, right? Ultimately, like, what is their ultimate like goal,
Yeah, absolutely. And, not to put too fine a point on it, but the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act does not pass the abolition test.
Oh, you
Like,
said that you knew some stuff about that specifically. That
oh yeah. I mean, we could go through it a little bit. I
I don't
have a
even know.
fact sheet.
I have no idea what's in it, honestly.
Well, I got a little fact sheet because I was curious. I was curious if it made any nods whatsoever to defunding even like the very sort of denuded left liberal NGO version. And the answer is basically no. It's actually kind of stunning, to use a word from my former boss. So got a fact sheet. You got that fact sheet, Paul? Paul is the silent partner in this stream. He's pulling things up for us. Thank you.
Paul.
Thank you for your service. So, fact sheet: George Floyd Justice in Policing Act of 2021. What does it have in it? All right. It says the first one, work to end racial and religious profiling. It doesn't even promise it's going to end it because they know they're not.
That's the nature of
and by the
policing.
way,
Like you can't like that's what police do though. Like you know what I mean? Like come on.
like it is already illegal, by the way, because it is unconstitutional to do racial profiling. But guess what? They don't fucking care. Let's see. It mandates more implicit bias training, right? So we're going to give them
We're
more
gonna make
money
cops start
to
doing
do
yoga. We're gonna pay them to do yoga, man, before they
yeah.
go out and kill more black people, bro.
They're going to become more self-actualized
Exactly, man.
murderers, just like when Tony Soprano took peyote. Spoiler
We're
alert.
mindfully aware.
Yes, we're going to give them more money to do more implicit bias training, which they're already doing, including in Minneapolis. It doesn't fucking work. What else we got? Save lives by banning chokeholds and no-knock warrants. Again, the chokehold that killed George Floyd was already illegal, as was the chokehold that killed Eric
Yeah,
Garner.
yeah.
Like, I don't know how they're gonna make them. I guess they could make them more illegal, but I don't think it's gonna happen. Call me crazy. Let's see. They banned no-knock warrants, also banned in most places. Oh, here's a good wordy one. Requires that deadly force be used only as a last resort, right? Because before it was their stated policy to use it as a first resort, and requires officers to employ de-escalation techniques first. Changes the standard to evaluate whether law enforcement use of force was justified from whether the force was, quote, reasonable to whether the force was necessary. Like, this is such legalistic bullshit. Condition grants on state and local law enforcement agencies establishing the same use of force standard. Like, what the?
Well, don't we already
No.
like we already assume that we do that, but most cops like their excuse is that they felt threatened, right? Which is why they fucking walk, right? Right? Because they felt threatened in the
Mhm.
situation. How do you actually like determine how like the guy who has a gun, how do you determine that he felt threatened enough to use it? Like you can't. I mean, the point is that he has a fucking gun, yo. You know, he can decide to use that again as not a last resort, but a first resort before he even it realizes like what the situation is, right? It's just this is insane, dude. What?
Yep, we got limit military equipment on American streets. They're not going to end it. They're just going to limit it. So the cops have fewer tanks and requires body cameras. So limits the transfer of military grade equipment to state and local law enforcement. They still have some. All right, let's not go too crazy. And requires federal uniformed officers to wear body cameras. Great, so we can keep watching people die on the body cameras. And requires state and local law enforcement to use existing federal funds to ensure the use of body cameras, blah, blah, blah. Requires marked federal police vehicles to have dashboard cameras. Yeah, again, we get to watch more people die on them. Hold police accountable in court. Mind you, this is after this we know this is going to fail because you can't hold police accountable until after they've killed someone. So
Yeah.
makes it easier to prosecute offending officers by amending blah 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 blah. Like, this is fucking, like, none of this does anything to solve. Oh, you know what? No, they name check our boy though. Where is it? Well, okay. Point I want to make about this is we know the threat of prosecution is not a deterrent for other crimes, and I've got a few books full of statistics on this. So and this is for regular people. So why would it be a deterrent for crimes committed by a class of people who are basically untouchable? I don't know. Oh, we got investigates police misconduct. More of the same. Oh, empower our communities to reimagine public safety in an equitable and just way. Now, when I talk about reimagining public safety, I'm talking about, I don't even want to say replacing the police, right? Because the police don't actually keep people safe. But at the same time that we get rid of the police, getting some transformative justice programs going, community-based accountability, stuff that actually has been shown to protect people from interpersonal harm. That's not what they're talking about here. Spoiler alert. It says, this bill reinvests in our communities by supporting critical community-based programs to change the culture of law enforcement and empower our communities to reimagine public safety in an equitable and just way. That's fucking
You know what this
pablum.
reminds me of? It's similar to what Joe Biden supported, I think, in the 90s, which I forget. I think it was community-oriented policing. I forget something, but the acronym for it was COPS, which is pretty funny. But basically, what they tried to do is like this community policing, which eventually, in the long term, ended up just putting more police in schools and public schools. Which, like, we already know how that goes when you put these psychopaths into like a building with a bunch of like teenagers. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, man, this is this is not good.
Well, speaking of Joe Biden, we also have his friend Obama on here. He gets name checked, right? So it says it establishes public safety innovation grants for community-based
Why do you need 3 or
organizations
4 words for that, yo? What does that mean?
to create local. This clearly came from Kamala. I'm going to say. This has her fingerprints all over it.
Yeah.
If you open up a small business in a marginalized community for 5 years, no, for establishes public safety innovation grants for community-based organizations to create local commissions and task forces to help communities to reimagine and develop concrete, just, and equitable public safety approaches. These
Say
local
that 5
commissions.
times fast, man.
Say that 5 times fast and like fucking Obama appears in your house and murders you. How these local commissions would operate similar to President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. Yeah, because that worked really fucking well.
That was pretty good, Jamie. That was pretty good.
Don't encourage me. We got change the culture of law enforcement with training to build integrity and trust. Blah, 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 blah. Improve transparency by collecting data on police misconduct and use of force. Stop sexual assault in law enforcement custody. Make it a crime for a federal law enforcement officer to engage in a sexual act with an individual who is under arrest, in detention, or in custody, which is fucking horrendous that was not against the law already.
Right. Like, how was that legal? How the man?
This happened in New York. The cop
Dude,
I
raped a
know.
woman
Yeah.
in custody and argued that it was consensual and got off.
Dude. Man, if you want no better example of like the unmitigated power that these people have, I mean, just like, come on, dude. Like, you know what? This is interesting because it basically proves that through all the language, right? Like, you know, the stop sexual assault in law enforcement custody, and I think it was one above it. There was one earlier that it sort of acknowledges that, like, yo, yeah, go to the first page. There's one that's like kind of insane. Yes, it's requires, that deadly force be used only as a last resort. As if that shouldn't already like be a thing. This is just admitting that police are sociopaths.
It's already the rules that they're supposed to be following.
It's admitting that police are sociopaths, and like this is the bare minimum that we could do to like acknowledge that. Not even like actually fundamentally change it, but just acknowledge that yes, like they're psychos that we pay to like brutalize and terrorize us. But like, sure, like just reminding you like not to kill anybody. Like don't shoot first and ask questions later. Which I mean, this is insulting, man. This is fucking insulting.
And how dare you put George Floyd's name on this, honestly?
Oh my god, dude.
This does nothing to shrink the
bro,
power.
This is kneeling in dashikis all over again, bro. Like, come on, son. At least that was comedic value. This is just insulting that you put this into words. You put this to like paper. You know what I mean?
And you know what's fucked up? Like this is the left wing of capital recuperating a social movement, which, as I discussed with Sean the other day, the left wing of capital is the smart one right now. It wasn't in the 1970s. It was the right wing, but now it's the left wing. The right wing of capital is going to react to this like it's fucking socialism. And we're just going to have a super diseased brain battle over these layers of mystification from what's actually going on.
They're making like Anglo-Saxon caucuses and talking about like the great replacement theory, and meanwhile the liberals are like demanding that Aunt Jemima be banned. You know what I mean? That that like they're demanding like all of these fucking superficial reforms and like this plastering George Floyd's name on it. It's gonna be amazing, yo.
So what is to be done with any of this in the time that we have left, which is not very much?
Dude. Oh my god, I don't even fucking know, man.
I mean,
I mean,
I have
There's nothing that
haven't
I can actually say that's not going to result in the suspension of your stream. So
exactly.
I'll keep those thoughts to
Yo, bro.
myself.
Yo, trust me, son. I know exactly
well,
what you're talking.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
this Twitch channel
yeah.
is just purely an experiment in what it takes to get banned and how long you have to do it for and how many people have to see you
Can
do
I,
it. Oh,
can I put it this way? Can I put it this way? This is the best example I think of for people that for just anyone who's ever like studied American history, hopefully not in the South, where they call the Civil War the War of Northern Aggression. But still like even that, like, you know, just overthrowing, it was even really overthrowing, it was an overthrowing like a slaveocracy. It was just, you know, Northern capital like already like becoming more of itself by adopting, right, like the racism and the brutality of the South, like in the slaveocracy into like, you know, like a free quote, like free labor, right? And imagine that we had to fight a fucking civil war for that to happen, only for us to find new ways to oppress ourselves. There's no fucking way. All I'm gonna say, there's no fucking way you could look at this in a way that like will not lead to some sort of like resolution in which there's a confrontation of what by what means. I don't know. I can't say. I really don't know. But it's insane to think otherwise. And I think abolition is the end goal, and people have to consider what that fucking means, man.
Hmm?
Because this is insane, yo.
this is
I
why.
hope that was safe enough.
Oh, I mean, we say way more treasonous things on the regs. It's actually funny because I was reported finally for one of my tweets. I got an email about it today. Oh my god, I put it in here because I thought it was funny. It says, "Hello, Twitter is required by German law to provide notice to users who are reported by people from Germany." Eee.
Yeah, I got one of those once, man.
That
That's pretty
leaves.
insane.
I'm like, what Germans are watching me and
From Germany, no
reporting?
less, yo.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure how I feel about that. We have received a complaint. We have received a complaint regarding your
exactly.
account, Jamie Elizabeth, for the following content. And it's not even the worst thing. It's like so innocuous compared to some other shit that I've tweeted. And I probably shouldn't say that because that fucking
Glad to
Nazi
see
might be
that people are
watching me
fighting
right now.
back. That's insane, yo.
This is in response to a clip posted by NYPD News that was totally real. Like, I'm gonna roll with it like it's real because I'm just having a little fun with them. But maybe this would be a fun thing to end with because I enjoyed watching it, even though it's probably propaganda. We got a guy, the cops stopped him, uh, and he didn't stand for it. Should we take a look?
Yeah. Let me see the shit.
How's it going? Hey, you have your license registration with you today? No. Yeah, roll in the window. It's a little dark over there, sir. You got curtains over the window? No. You have your license registration with you? Hold on. Oh, what are you getting out for? Huh? What are you getting out for? I got to look in my water shop. Well, it's down there. That's fine. You can open the door if you want. When we get out. Oh, shit! Oh, shit!
So it says today, a vehicle stopped for running a red light proved once again that no traffic enforcement is routine. When approached, the driver doused a cop with a chemical before fleeing, tossing a Molotov cocktail. What? I want to see.
I
Molotov
thought that's what I wanted to
cocktail.
see,
I want
man.
to. Oh,
A
like I want to
Molotov
see
cocktail.
like one of these. I
When
didn't
did-
see one of these there.
I didn't see.
Finally,
I didn't see this motherfucker in flames running away from that car.
Exactly,
You know what I
yo.
mean?
Red does not
I would have
deliver.
liked to, but it didn't
I would have
happen.
liked it.
Fortunately,
Come on,
our
dude.
officers were not injured, and I just said glad to see people are fighting back, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh my god, dude. Yo, it's
Sorry.
like
I don't refer to them as officers anymore. Like after the Dante Wright shit, I just call them pigs. Like I
they're just
can't
fucking pigs, man.
Yeah, man.
They're just
Yep.
sociopaths, man.
I'm trying to be like polite or civil about this shit.
I mean, it's just I don't know, dude. Like the Adam Toledo video, like that, you know. I mean, and like Tamir Rice, you know, that one too. And it's just like, yo, what the like what does it take for you to like kill a child? Like, I just don't understand that, man.
Oh, speaking of which, so I was asked to go on like a national broadcaster tomorrow morning to talk about my reactions to the George Floyd trial. And they're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, we," because they asked me to go on tonight, and I was like, "Sorry, no, I'm too busy tonight. I've got like kid stuff, and I've got like work and whatever." They're like, "Oh, can you come on tomorrow morning?" I said, "Oh, yeah, sure, I can come on tomorrow morning." And then I just checked my email a little while ago, like right before I came on, and somebody sent me an email saying, "Oh, hey, we just want to do a quick pre-interview with you. You know, I just want to ask you a few questions. Like, what are your reactions to the trial? Because we just want to know like before you interview." And I was like, "I don't know exactly what the fuck this is about. You want to make sure I'm not gonna get on your TV and say some wild shit." You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah. We're gonna have to cut the feed.
Yeah.
Well,
You want to make sure that I don't call them pigs on national television. I can't promise that. I didn't even answer this email. I'm not sure what I'm gonna say tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
you
Dude,
should
like,
look inside your heart.
Yo, do
fucking
that
roll
shit,
with it.
bro. Do that
You
shit,
don't want to
man.
give me that kind of advice, Jamie.
Oh, I mean,
Nah,
I would be really proud.
I would be proud too, and I would love to see someone put it up on YouTube.
Oh,
Like, I would
damn.
love for
Could
them to
have
capture
a
that.
viral fucking moment, my
Just
friend.
make a GIF out of it, yo. I would
Oh,
love that.
damn.
This is your moment. This
We'll
is your
see.
time to shine.
We'll see.
You could do
We'll
it. It's
see.
not gonna hit the same coming from me.
And, yo, or even me, to be honest, yo. You say that shit, man. That'd be awesome.
We'll see about all that. I don't know. I haven't even figured out. Like once I saw that I got that email, I was like, I don't even really know if I want to go on. Yeah, I've been on the show. How many times y'all gonna ask me questions about what I'm gonna say before I go on, or what are my reactions? I was like, get the fuck out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Well, perhaps the I word, surgency, is not as taboo an idea as it once was, because I have an article from I assume this is a liberal publication because it's called The Conversation and its tagline is academic rigor, journalistic flair.
Whatever the
this
hell
is
that
like
means.
this is like some John Hodgman character shit. But it's an article that says, and it's written from a liberal viewpoint, the United States is at risk of an armed anti-police insurgency. So maybe the libs
Hell yes.
are
Oh,
starting to
hell yeah.
recognize. Maybe if the libs are starting to recognize it, maybe we should be a little bit, I don't want to say hopeful, but like,
Maybe
yeah,
we should
like
give
it's
him
gonna
reasons to be
suck.
afraid. Yeah.
A lot of our people are gonna get hurt. It's gonna fucking suck. But a lot of people are getting hurt right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh man, dude.
Damn, we'll see about all that.
Yeah.
But hey, listen, I would love to hang out all night with y'all too, because I have a lot of fun. But I do have to go because I gotta be up early to drop the kids off at daycare.
Yeah, I gotta head out too. Grab some.
You go live that dad life. Yeah, I gotta go too, and feed my cats and pet them before I put them to bed.
Your children. Your children. Why, Jamie? Why, yo? Oh my god.
That's what I got going on over here.
I don't understand you cat people. I just do not get it.
Well, if you want my cats to go back to just being stupid animals and not my children, maybe you can help me find my second husband.
Find your second husband. I got you.
That's probably what it's gonna take.
Come to Atlanta, Jamie. There are a lot of cool dudes here, man. Come to Atlanta.
All right.
Jamie, I already told you. Go. Jamie, I done told you already. Go hit on my brother.
Oh,
already trying to hook you
He's
up,
a comrade.
Jamie. Come on, man.
You
talking about Kenny?
Yeah, Kenny. He's a comrade. He's got his own Twitch stream and everything.
Kenny is cool as fuck, yo.
Accepting applications. He does not live in New York, so that might be a bit of an obstacle.
That's true. That's true.
He can be convinced.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward.
You gotta give him a chance, bro. You gotta at least give him a chance.
I'm looking forward to meeting people again. I will say that when things are open back up. I feel like I don't know if I could date someone on the ML end of the spectrum. I feel like we'd have a lot of angry sex.
Well, Jamie, like, don't judge a book by its cover, man. That
just
might not be a
kinda.
bad thing. You know what I mean? Exactly.
I know. Girl, why are you threatening people with a good time?
Exactly, yo.
We would fight a lot. We'd have angry sex. It would be terrible.
Hey man, like my girlfriend, she doesn't really identify, but she's like more on the anarchist end, and like I guess I identify as an Emma, and we get along just fine, man. We actually resolve the contradictions through our love. So
God.
Yeah,
The
take that as
dialectic,
exactly.
folks.
the dialectic, yo. You
Oh
know,
my God. Well, maybe that's what we're doing. Maybe that's what we're gonna do here. I don't know. I
I
feel
hope
pretty
so,
good
man.
about this, guys. I feel like this is a good
Helping you
stream.
find a second husband. All right.
I hope
Okay.
so.
Gonna-
Yeah.
I gotta stop. Like, I sound really pathetic. Like, I just talked to Virgil about this too. He was like, I mean, you gotta be a little less honest sometimes. Like, you gotta make, just like put your coolest face forward. And that's, and then you'll be like, we'll think you're cool. I'm like, I am cool. I'm just also sometimes sad. Like,
Well, fake it till you make it, man. That's what I do.
it's just yeah. On that
Yeah,
note.
you can't sad post your way through life IRL, Jamie.
I know.
Yo, that's me at Demon Hours. That's what I do.
We all get a little sad sometimes.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
all
I know all about that. I know all about
hang
that sad life. Yeah.
hang our feelings out into the void. But speaking of which, the void is calling, and I must go to it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put more food in my void. I'm starving. All right.
Enjoy your food that's keeping you alive. Aaron, enjoy your loving family, Andray, and I'm gonna enjoy my 2 beautiful cats.
Hell yeah.
All right,
Yo,
cat
this
lady.
is tight, y'all. I like this.
Thank-
This is tight.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for doing this with me, guys, and thanks for watching, everybody.
All right. Thanks for
All
watching,
right,
y'all.
y'all. Have a good night.